Everyone in my family showed up to my graduation. My mom wore her favorite dress. My little sister carried flowers. Even my aunt brought a camera. They laughed, they hugged, they clapped, but not for me. I sat 6 rows behind them, alone in a rented gown, watching them cheer for the wrong name. No one reserved a seat for me. No one looked for me. No one cared that I was finally walking across that stage. But someone else was watching. Someone with a phone. And the video they took? It changed everything. They always said the camera never lies. But in my house, it did. It lied all the time. Because it only showed the parts my mother wanted the world to see. By the time I turned 21, my family had become something of a small internet sensation. Not huge, not celebrity level, but enough for local sponsors and mommy blogger partnerships. My mother had built an entire persona online, the inspiring single mom raising 2 daughters. Her profile picture was always us, me, her, and Haley, posed on our porch, wearing matching sweaters. Except I never remembered posing for most of them, or smiling for that matter. Haley, my younger sister, was the golden one. Blonde curls, bright eyes, straight A's in drama and cheerleading. She was everything a camera loved. Loud, pretty, bubbly. Me? I was the quiet one, the helper, the hand holding the light behind the camera. 2 days before my college graduation, a new video popped up on my mom's TikTok. Graduation surprise for my daughter. The title alone made my chest tighten. For a flicker of a second, I thought, maybe. Maybe she finally noticed. Maybe she finally remembered. But then the clip opened with Haley in her high school uniform, surrounded by balloons and cupcakes, giggling as my mom shouted, "You did it, baby girl. We're so proud of you." It wasn't her graduation. It wasn't even her final year. It was mine. And yet, there I was, invisible again. No balloons, no cupcakes, no video. Later that evening, I received a text from my mom. "Don't forget to bake Haley's favorite brownies for tonight. She's bringing her friends over." Not a word about my rehearsal. Not a question about my cap and gown. Just the same script I'd followed for years. Be useful, be quiet, and don't expect anything in return. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed out a reply I didn't send. "It's my graduation too." I deleted it. You ever felt like a guest star in your own family? Like you're just waiting for someone to notice you're missing? I started pulling at that feeling, like a loose thread in a sweater. I went up to the attic that night and rummaged through the dusty boxes where Mom kept old paperwork. I wasn't exactly sure what I was looking for. Maybe a copy of my old report cards or that embarrassing kindergarten photo with the uneven pigtails. Instead, I found a folder labeled Emily Enrollment. Inside, a few old school registration forms and a curious black line crossing out something in the parental contact field. Someone had whited out an old name. Underneath, in faded pen, it looked like another last name, not ours. I tried not to overthink it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just spiraling. The next afternoon, I sat with Grandma on the porch. She was crocheting in silence, the way she always did when she didn't want to talk, but also didn't want to be alone. I hadn't meant to ask, but it slipped out. "Grandma, did Mom ever change my name? Like, legally?" She didn't look up, but her fingers paused. "There are things, sweetheart," she said slowly, "that your mother never wanted to talk about. Things that hurt her more than she let on." "What kind of things?" I think you should ask her someday, when she's ready." "Ready for what? Why wasn't she ready now?" That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and really saw the scar above my right elbow for the first time in years. A scar from falling off a bike when I was little. Except, I couldn't remember ever owning a bike. Haley had one. I didn't. And the more I tried to recall that day, the fuzzier it got. It was like a memory that didn't belong to me. 2 days before the graduation ceremony, I scrolled through my mom's Facebook albums, searching for something, anything, that proved I had been wanted once, that I belonged. I stopped cold on one photo. Mom, holding a baby, beaming in a hospital room. The caption read, "My miracle girl. Welcome to the world, Emily." But the baby didn't look like me, not even a little. And the timestamp? 6 months before the date on my birth certificate. I stopped expecting applause a long time ago. But that didn't mean I stopped trying to earn it. While Haley practiced cheer routines and posed for Mom's weekly content, I balanced 2 part-time jobs and a full load of senior-level classes. I tutored first-year students in math, taught ESL on weekends, and worked the night shift at the campus library. I made Dean's List 5 semesters in a row. I won a departmental award for my thesis on emotional development in underfunded schools. Still, I never saw my name mentioned once online. On the same day I received my graduation honors confirmation, my mom posted a carousel of Haley in a red blazer standing behind a podium. The caption read, "So proud of my daughter for being invited to TEDx Youth to share her passion for education." The post exploded. Tens of thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, people tagging brands, calling Haley an inspiration. The irony? The speech topic, "How Early Trauma Shapes Empathy," was mine. I had spent months researching it, drafting it, and presenting it at a small student-led forum. Haley had asked to read it, just out of curiosity. And now, it was her moment. I didn't confront either of them. I just sat there staring at the screen, my heart beating in my ears. I was still in my library work vest, my name tag crooked, my hands ink-stained from grading papers. My version of achievement wasn't photogenic. It wasn't branded. I started applying for graduate fellowships in educational psychology. A professor I deeply admired had written a glowing letter of recommendation. My hopes rested on a scholarship that could open the next chapter of my life, a future far from home. But when the rejection email came, it didn't just say no. It said I had already submitted an application to that program under a different identity and been disqualified for falsifying credentials. I stared at the words, stunned. Falsifying. I had never submitted anything beyond my one application. I checked the attached profile. It listed my exact school, GPA, and major, but the email and phone number belonged to my mother. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened as the realization sank in. She'd used my name to apply, probably hoping to boost Haley's resume, maybe pass her off as me in some academic setting. Or worse, she just wanted control. I wanted to scream. Instead, I printed the letter and took it to Professor Lynn, the woman who had believed in me more than anyone. She didn't say much when she saw the rejection. She simply looked at me, then handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Emily, you are not weak for walking away. You are strong for realizing when staying would destroy you. Don't let their story become yours. Step into the one you choose." I kept that letter in my coat pocket for weeks. Graduation day came like a slow-moving storm. My name was listed on the program. My cap was decorated with hand-painted stars, but there were no family seats reserved in my name. No "Congratulations, Emily" signs. Just rows of strangers and a cool wind that refused to die down. I sat quietly in the back row of the graduates section, watching other families wave, cheer, sob. My mother sat front row with Haley and two of her influencer friends, all wearing matching pastel cardigans. Haley was already live streaming. My name wasn't mentioned. When they called me to the stage, I walked slowly, deliberately. My heels clicked louder than the applause. I didn't scan the crowd. I didn't want to. But something in me twitched. That whisper in the back of your mind. If it were you, would you look back? Just once. I didn't. Not until I reached the bottom of the stairs again. I turned my head briefly. They were laughing at something Haley said. My name tag was already facing the other way. Later that night, I got tagged in a TikTok video. A student I didn't know had posted it. A wide shot of the ceremony, focusing in on me, alone, while the rest of the graduates were greeted with hugs and confetti. The caption read, "Everyone cheered for someone, except her." By morning, it had over 2 million views. I wasn't ready for what came next. The comments poured in, asking who I was, where my family was, why no one had hugged me. Strangers felt my silence more than my family ever had. Then, a direct message came through. No profile picture, no name, just a single line. "Do you know why your mother left you in that seat? I think it's time you find out." The message didn't include a name, just a location, a time, and a warning. Come alone. I didn't tell anyone. Not my roommate, not my professor. I barely told myself. But the next afternoon, I walked into a small cafe 2 blocks off campus, my heart pounding like I was breaking some sacred rule. The man waiting for me was older, maybe mid-40s, clean-cut, calm. He had a stack of folders on the table and a worn-out notebook. He didn't introduce himself, just said, "I saw the clip. I knew who you were." That's how it started. He told me his name was James, an independent journalist who had once covered local corruption stories. He'd been following my mother's content for years, ever since her sudden rise online, back when she was just a PTA member posting resilience parenting tips. But that wasn't how he knew her. He knew her because of someone else. "Do you know a woman named Clara?" The name hit me like ice down my spine. I didn't, not really. But it wasn't unfamiliar. "Your birth mother," he said quietly. "She was your mother's older sister." The room tilted. Clara had suffered from severe postpartum depression after giving birth. According to James, she was quietly erased from family photos, gradually isolated from the community, when her behavior didn't align with the perfect family image. My mom, her younger sister, had stepped in, taken me in, and shortly after, Clara had taken her own life. I couldn't breathe. James placed a photo on the table. A young woman with tired eyes, soft curls, holding a newborn close to her chest. My chest tightened. I had seen those eyes in the mirror. They were mine. "Why are you showing me this?" I whispered. "Because you deserve to know the story they buried." He slid over a copy of a grant application. The grant was for single mothers raising orphan children in trauma recovery. My mom had submitted it just 2 weeks after Clara's funeral. Attached were photos, me, a toddler, clinging to her leg. I didn't remember those years. But the paperwork didn't lie. She hadn't just taken me in. She had built her brand on me. That night I sat in the dark, holding the photo James had given me. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, staring at the face of the woman who'd given birth to me and been erased like a typo. I tried to imagine her voice, her laugh, the way she might have sung lullabies or brushed my hair. And then, for the first time in years, I broke. Not the kind of tears you can wipe away, The kind that come from somewhere deep, buried so far under performance and obedience that you forget they're there. I sobbed into my hoodie, clutching the photo like it could anchor me to something real. When I woke up the next day, the tears were gone. What remained was resolve. I packed what little I had and left the house before sunrise. I left no note, just a single print of Clara's photo, taped to the fridge, where Mum's brand deals used to be pinned. By noon, a woman I didn't know but who had messaged me through Instagram offered her guest room until I got on my feet. She said simply, "You reminded me of myself when I left my family. No one should feel that alone." People I'd never met began sending me kind messages, small donations, offers of jobs, shared stories. One message stood out. A creator I admired, someone who spoke often about family, estrangement, and healing, DM'd me. "Your story shook me. I was the unseen daughter, too, and I want to help amplify your voice." We set up a call. She helped me launch my own channel, The Unseen Daughter. I filmed my first video with trembling hands. I told my story, not the viral version, not the clip that made people cry, but the real one. The years of silence, the erased birthdays, the fake smiles. By morning, the video had 6 million views. I scrolled through the comments, overwhelmed by the tidal wave of strangers saying, "I see you." And then, at the very bottom of my inbox, a message from Haley. Short. No emojis. No filters. "I know everything. I'm sorry, Emily. Please. Can we talk?" It took 3 days before my mother responded. She didn't text me. She didn't call. She went live on Facebook. I didn't watch it at first. But my inbox flooded with links, screenshots, messages from people saying they were so sorry or absolutely disgusted. Eventually I clicked. She was in the kitchen, the one I used to clean every night. She wore a soft pink sweater, hair curled perfectly, sitting in front of her usual backdrop, a chalkboard sign that said, "Home is where love lives." She smiled at first, then her face turned solemn. "I never thought I'd have to defend myself against my own daughter," she began, voice trembling in just the right places. "But Emily, she's not well. She's confused, and she's being manipulated by people who want to ruin our family." She called me lost. She called me bitter. She said, "We've always supported Emily. She just doesn't remember." And then, the final blow. "She's creating false stories for attention. It's heartbreaking to see her lie like this. I raised her as my own. I gave her everything." I sat frozen. I could have let it go, but I'd already lived too many years in her silence. I wasn't going to drown in her version of the truth anymore. I posted a clip. Quiet, raw, unedited. It was from 2 years ago, recorded on my phone when I was sick with a fever, slumped on the couch in a hoodie. Mom's voice echoed in the background. "Come on, Emily. Just say it. One more time. And make it sound real." "I'm tired," I croaked. "You want me to cancel the sponsorship? You want to ruin this deal?" "I love you, Mom," I whispered, barely audible. "That's better," she said. "Now smile." The clip spread like wildfire. News outlets picked up the story within hours. And when the journalists started digging, they didn't stop at my clip. They found financial records, grants, brand partnerships, and a staggering total of nearly $200,000 received under the label of trauma-based family support. Every dime had been used to promote Haley, her wardrobe, travel, private coaching. None of it had ever gone toward me. My name was the banner. But I had been nothing more than a footnote. The backlash was instant. Comment sections flipped. Brands dropped her. Sponsorships disappeared overnight. A local parenting blog removed all her guest columns. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. Just hollow. A week later, I received an email invitation. A nonprofit mental health organization was hosting a summit on family trauma. They'd seen my video, read my story. They wanted me to speak. So did someone else, my mother. She'd been invited too, for a joint panel, a public conversation. I didn't reply right away. I didn't know if I had the strength to sit beside her and pretend we were just another complicated family. But something inside me said this wasn't about her anymore. The day of the panel, I stood backstage, holding a small card with bullet points. Breathing was hard. My palms were damp. The moderator approached with a tight smile. "She's not coming," she said gently. "Cancelled an hour ago." Of course, but the audience was still waiting. So I stepped onto that stage, alone. The room was quiet. A few familiar faces. A lot of strangers. Some probably expecting drama, maybe even confrontation. I gave them neither. I stood at the podium and said, "When I was a little girl, I thought silence meant peace. That if no one raised their voice, then everything was fine. But silence can be violent too. It can erase you. It can bury you alive." I paused, letting the weight settle. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I know what it feels like to be erased. And I want you to know you're not invisible, even if your own family refuses to see you. There was no standing ovation, no thunderous applause, just a stillness, the kind that says someone finally heard you. Later that night, as I packed up my notes, the knock at my door made me jump. It was Haley. She looked smaller. No makeup, no followers watching. She stepped inside and sat at the edge of my bed, holding her bag like it might float away. She said if I defended you, I'd stop being her daughter, she whispered. So I didn't. I stayed quiet, but I'm done. She looked up at me, tears brimming. "I'm sorry, Emily. I should have stood by you." I didn't answer. I just pulled her into a hug. We stayed there for a long time. The next morning, an email arrived. Subject line, "Documentary proposal, the unseen daughter." The director's message was simple. "Your story needs to be told, on your terms." The first time I sat across from my therapist, I didn't know what to say. She asked why I was there, and I gave her the expected answers. Family conflict, trust issues, anxiety. But the truth sat deeper, like a stone I couldn't swallow. Eventually, I said, "I don't know who I am without their version of me." She nodded gently. "Then let's start from there." Week by week, I peeled away the layers. Obedient daughter, silent supporter, scapegoat. I talked about Clara, the woman I never got to meet but somehow missed deeply. I talked about my mother, not to blame, not to hate, but to understand the damage she'd passed down and never addressed. Forgiveness didn't come with flowers or grand gestures. It came in quiet moments, writing letters I never sent, crying in the shower, deleting photos that once made me ache. I didn't forgive her because she deserved it. I forgave because I deserved peace. That summer, I launched something I'd dreamed of during my own sleepless nights. A digital support network for teens and young adults who felt invisible in their homes. I called it Brighter Boundaries, a space for those who'd been gaslighted, manipulated, emotionally exiled. The inbox overflowed within days. Stories like mine. Stories worse than mine. A boy who'd been disowned for being gay. A girl whose parents called her the replacement child. A college student whose father hadn't said her name in 3 years. And then came the message that stopped my breath. "I almost ended my life last month. Then I found your video. You didn't just save yourself, you saved me too. Thank you, Emily." I read it again and again, tears blurring the screen. You ever wonder if your survival might mean someone else's? That your story, no matter how broken, might light the path for someone still lost in the dark? I held that thought close, like armor. Then came the letter. It arrived by certified mail, handwritten, sealed in a faded blue envelope. It smelled faintly of lavender. My mother's name wasn't on the return address. Clara's was. Inside was a will, drafted 2 weeks before her death. She had named me as the beneficiary of a property, a small cabin by the lake where I found peace once. Along with the deed, there was a folded note. It wasn't long. Emily, if you're reading this, then someone told you the truth. I hope they did. I hope you found your voice. This place was where I remembered who I was. Maybe it can help you remember who you are, too. With all the love I never got to give you. Clara. I stared at the paper for hours, unable to move. A week later, I traveled to the lake. The cabin was worn, overgrown, but it was quiet in the way only nature can be. The walls creaked like they had secrets. The dock stretched into still water that reflected the sky perfectly. I stood there barefoot, wine brushing my cheeks, and for the first time I felt truly mine. Not theirs, not the internet's, not a label or a brand or a burden. Just me. That fall I turned the cabin into something new. The quiet home. A retreat for young people escaping emotional harm. A place where they could simply breathe and not be afraid of being seen or, worse, unseen. We ran workshops, quiet writing days, art therapy in the woods. People came and left notes in a journal by the fireplace. I finally heard my own thoughts here. I didn't realize how loud survival was until it got quiet. The home became more than shelter. It became proof that healing didn't have to be loud to be real. Recognition followed, though I never chased it. An online magazine named me one of the top 25 most inspiring voices under 25. I gave interviews, spoke at youth conferences, wrote a few essays. I was asked to mentor students who felt out of place in their own stories. Then, one day, a letter came. It was from her. The handwriting was tight, controlled. No return address, no apology. You got everyone's hearts back, except mine. Mom. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled to myself and whispered, "That's okay. I learned how to live without it." Some losses you don't mourn. You outgrow them. Months later, one of my mentees invited me to her graduation. She'd struggled with panic attacks, nearly dropped out. But she pushed through. She asked me to hand her the diploma. I hesitated. The last stage I stood on still echoed in my bones. But I went. As she crossed the stage, her eyes locked on mine. The crowd stood and clapped. Not because of what I lost, but because of what I gave. For the first time, applause didn't ache. It healed. It had been almost a year since I last heard her voice. When the call came, I didn't recognize the number. I almost let it ring out. But something inside told me to answer. Her voice was weaker than I remembered. Raspy, like gravel under breath. "I'm at St. Clair's," she said simply. "I'm not well." She didn't say why she called. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask me to come. She didn't have to. The next morning, I walked through the hospital doors with a book tucked under my arm. An old paperback Clara had underlined, dog-eared, filled with margin notes. It felt right somehow, even if she'd never read it herself. Room 412 was quiet. Machines hummed steadily. My mother lay there, pale and unfamiliar under fluorescent light, her curls flattened and gray at the roots. She opened her eyes when I stepped in but didn't smile. I pulled the chair closer and sat. Neither of us spoke. I didn't ask why she did it. I didn't ask what she thought of the video, the fallout, the grant money, the truth. And she didn't offer. She didn't beg for forgiveness or pretend the past hadn't happened. I opened the book. Chapter 1. I said softly. You might like this story. And I began to read. We stayed that way for hours. Me reading, her listening. Sometimes her eyelids fluttered shut. Sometimes they didn't. I didn't check. I just kept going. Somewhere in Chapter 7, I felt her fingers twitch. Not a grab. Just a shift. A small human response. When I finally stood to leave, I closed the book and placed it on her tray table. I reached for my coat, then paused. Her voice was barely a whisper. If you could go back, would you still want to be mine? I didn't answer. I just held her gaze, then walked out the door without looking back. Some questions are meant to remain unanswered. In the months that followed, I wrote. I poured everything into the pages. The silence, the grief, the ache of being almost loved, the pain of being made invisible, the weight of reclaiming your name. I titled the book, The Day They Didn't Cheer. It hit #1 within a week. 6 weeks later, it was still there. I was invited to talk shows, panels, podcasts. I was asked the same question over and over. How did you find the strength? I never had the perfect answer. Some days it felt like strength. Other days it felt like survival wearing nice clothes. But I told the truth, always. I didn't want to become what hurt me, I'd say. That's what kept me going. The most surreal moment came when I was asked to give a TED Talk. I stood on that red circle, palms slightly sweating, staring at a sea of faces waiting for something profound. I told them about Clara, about the cabin, about the silence between mother and daughter that could drown out an entire stadium of applause. And then I said, for years I lived in the shadow of someone else's story, but I'm done being the background. I am not the silence. I am not the almost. I am the voice I never heard when I needed it. And I know now. I was never too much. I was just never seen by the right people. The audience rose to their feet before I finished. It wasn't the kind of clapping I'd once craved. This time it didn't feel like validation. It felt like witnessing. I launched a podcast called Unmuted, where survivors of family silence shared their truths. Episode 1. The Sibling Who Stayed. My first guest? Haley. She sat across from me, nervously fiddling with the mic. Her voice cracked a little when she began. I was the golden child, but it didn't feel like gold. It felt like chains. She looked straight into the camera. Emily, I'm sorry. For standing by. For not seeing you. For letting Mom turn your pain into her product. I didn't cry. I just reached across the table and took her hand. We were healing. Imperfectly. But together. The final chapter came quietly. I stood backstage at the graduation of one of my students. Someone I had mentored through trauma. Someone who once told me, I don't think I'm built for this world. She was walking across the stage today. Cap tilted too far left, gown wrinkled at the hem, but her eyes were shining. She'd asked me to hand her the diploma. The coordinator called her name. I stepped forward with the certificate, heart pounding. She approached, blinking back tears. The crowd stood. They clapped. Not because of who I was related to, not because of a viral clip. They clapped because I helped someone believe in their own story. As I handed her the diploma, she whispered, You're the reason I made it. I smiled and whispered back, So are you. Curtain close. The camera panned wide, catching the full scene. This time I wasn't alone. This time they all stood for me.